Hello, beautiful soul family. Rebecca here, your vibe mentor. Welcome to Monday Magic Intuitive Energy Reading, where I give my take on what we've just experienced and bring through some guidance on how to move forward through the week. I have started titling these timeless energy readings because there are often messages that can be timeless. And so while the first minute or two will cover the geo perspective and the astrology perspective, know that everything after those first couple of minutes is very much timeless. So feel free to go back and watch some of the other energy readings as well. I'm finding that the golden nuggets end up being sort of in the latter half of these energy readings. So whatever video you click on is exactly what you need. I love to trust the divine oracle of social media to deliver us the messages that are needed at that time. So definitely make sure to get through the current energy aspects and into the golden nuggets later in these videos. So this has been another intense week. Last week's title was Sustained Intensity, because we are going through a very unique type of purging, and it's finally starting to reveal itself why, and I'll get into that in just a minute. So as far as the solar perspective, in the last 24 hours, we've had quite a few M-class solar flares. We had 8 flares yesterday, M-class solar flares yesterday, and one so far as up till about, I think, 7 a.m. Central Time was the last time I checked. So there may be more since then. So feel free to comment below, correct me if there's been more. We also have had sustained Schumann resonance activity all week this past week. And it is true that the Schumann can spike because of lightning, but what we have been seeing is unique. It is more than or greater than just your typical lightning. So while there are seasonal lightning, I guess you would say lightning storms that could create some of these spikes, we have seen higher amplitude than we have seen in a very long time, if ever. And again, I'll have to link below the expert on that. I am not an expert, but I do pay attention because these things tend to make things a little bit more challenging. It's more for our body to handle. The geomagnetics were quieter earlier in the week. We did have a few M flares throughout the week. But I like to sort of look at what is the astrology doing, what is the geomagnetic conditions look like, and what is the Schumann resonance doing, because it impacts how we feel. And so especially when there's as an intense week as we had this past week, I'm looking for what's going on. How can we explain this intensity? And sometimes we just have to use the term unmeasurables, because sometimes there just isn't an explanation. And I would say this past week was definitely one of them. It just, again, felt like one thing after the other, sort of getting pummeled. And yet there's this very strange juxtaposition of challenge and purging and things being brought to the surface for us to address, and also very hopeful, optimistic support and encouragement coming through at the very same time. It's almost difficult for the brain to sort of wrap its head around, because it's like, why can I tap into this really good feeling? And I have this very strong sense that amazing things are happening, and able to keep my hopes up and knowing that it's going to be awesome and amazing. And yet at the same time, it's just like, bam, 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 right? We just keep getting hit one thing after the other. And so it's become clear that there's pressure building, that I don't know why Zoom does this. I can't make it do it on purpose. I take that as confirmation from the divine when those little thumbs up show up, or sometimes there's balloons that come up. It's never done it on a video, so this is fun. But there's this pressure building. This is what I was about to say when we got the thumbs up, that leads to a release. You may have had that feeling of like, I just can't take anymore. Something's got to give. And when you have that feeling, you know something's got to give, right? If you think of volcanic pressure, eventually the pressure is going to be released, and it will facilitate expansion, right? When we get backed into a corner, or we just feel like our back is against the wall, we've got to do something different. That's sort of the energy that I'm experiencing, and that I believe the collective is as well. And I shouldn't even say I believe. the beauty of meeting with clients on a regular basis is you can see that this energy is prevalent for the vast majority of us, especially those of us who are on a similar path, right? It is also reminiscent of something I've noticed in the past, where it can feel like we've taken those 2 steps back before we make the 3 steps forward. It's kind of that pullback effect. It reminds me of a rubber band, right? Sometimes we can feel like, oh, I thought I was through this already. And it can feel like, did I fall back? Did I take a step back? Did I fail at something? And it's that pullback feeling that then leads to a slingshot forward. And we end up farther ahead than we were when we first started to get pulled back. It is constriction. It can feel like constriction that will precede the expansion again. Again, that pullback feeling. I've been saying for a few weeks now, even in late 23, there was this sense of purging. I would say December and January especially. And it's starting to feel like it's the cleanup and the preparation for what is to come in April. And we know that the North Node is conjuncting Chiron within the next week or so. We also have a new moon in Aquarius. We have all sorts of planets moving from Capricorn into Aquarius over Pluto. So they're kind of having a conversation with Pluto before we move into more Aquarius energy. And so it's feeling like what we're going through here this week, what we've been going through, what February kind of feels like, is this preparation for, it's sort of the necessary cleanup work before we move into the eclipse season, which we're starting to kind of get a sense of already. So really watch out for the ego thoughts, watch out for the resistance, watch out for those thoughts that want to tell you you're doing it wrong, or you should or shouldn't be here, or it should or shouldn't be this way. Just remember, you cannot do it wrong. If you're not familiar with non-doership, you definitely want to check that out. Essentially, it's a knowing and awareness that we are being lived by life, that we are a culmination of many, many generations. Thousands of people have led to us being here and experiencing life the way we experience it, not to mention the divine God source, our creator, living in us and moving through us. So it really does give us a sense of peace, where we can remember that the thing you said or did was not just moving through you, it was life moving through you. And it likely was a necessary catalyst for growth, not only for yourself, but for the person involved. So whatever you're experiencing, just remember, God is perfectly in charge. Everything is in divine order every single moment of every single day. And it can be such a relief to let go of that burden of feeling like I have to make things happen, or it's all up to me, or I failed, or I'm doing it wrong. No, we can let go of that inaccurate belief and understand that our only job is to be present and aware and receptive, to let life move through us without that resistance and that hypervigilance and that control trauma response. So stay in the present moment and be aware of the thoughts. Learn to discern where the thoughts are coming from. So those things that cut us off, I have said many times in the past, the illusion, the veil, the separation, the pain, the suffering is all coming from our thoughts. It is our perspective. We know that a miracle is just a shift in perspective. And so we can look at, where's the thought coming from? Is it coming from the left? Is it coming from the ego? Is it making you uncomfortable? Is it perpetuating fear? Is it perpetuating hypervigilance or a activated nervous system response? Or is it coming from the right? Is it your intuition? Is it your higher self? Is it supportive? Really look for that still, calm voice, because remember, the ego is loud, but source is quiet. And source speaks in a peaceful, soft, kind and loving and supportive and guiding way. And so to me, it literally feels like ego comes from the left brain and source comes from the right. So really look at, in moments where you feel like you're accusing yourself of doing it wrong, or you're worried about keeping things under control or making things happen, that very much is the ego, or you could even say dark forces, however you want to label it, doesn't matter to me, it is that part of our brains that cause us to suffer. And so we want to notice in those moments and say, no, I choose not to participate. I choose not to buy that thought, buy into that thought, and switch over to the right brain and remain as king over your life, right? I love the etymology of as king, right? Asking questions. Remain as king in your life by asking questions of source. So when you notice you're in the left brain, move over to the right brain and start to ask questions about, how do I move forward? What is the accurate perspective to have in this moment? And so really, I love the quote, the biblical quote from Jesus in the Bible. He says, cast your net to the right. You can consciously look to the right in your brain and ask questions and remain in union with source, who will provide the guidance. And you will be amazed when you let go of those left brain thoughts, the ego thoughts, how peaceful you become, how still the body is, and how much assurance that you will receive, right? So we want to live from intuition, live through our higher self, and remain constantly connected to source, right? And that's where we allow ourselves to receive. That's when we allow miracles to occur in our lives. So we have to be willing to let go. We have to be willing to trust, and we have to be willing to receive, right? Let go of control and struggle and resistance. Allow what is to be in that present moment. And remember that we suffer when we attach to how things should be. Pain plus resistance equals suffering. The pain can move through very, very quickly. We won't suffer if we allow it to move. It's when we cling to it and resist it that we suffer, right? So surrender to the discomfort and watch it dissipate. It's a really easy statement to make, and yet it's a challenging habit to cultivate. We collectively in society, even globally, we have a tendency to distract ourselves or ignore or resist or try to sweep up or get rid of uncomfortable feelings, and that actually keeps them there. We want to take a pause, take a moment to notice I'm feeling discomfort, whether it's a physical sensation, an emotional sensation. They can go hand in hand, but you want to take the time to sit with it, look at it, be with it, get curious about it. Don't try to manage it with your brain. Don't try to force it to move through. Allow it to be what it is, and having your focus and attention on it while allowing it to be what it is will cause it to dissipate and move. So you want to focus on, right, the issue. I have air quotes here. It is not an issue. It is an awareness. It is a expansion. It is a lesson. It is growth. It is purging. It is release. It is freedom, because as we allow it to dissipate and move through us, we are freed up from that task. Tax. That's interesting. Task really wants to be said. So it is kind of a task to sit with those emotions and sit with those sensations, but you would be shocked how quickly they dissipate and move through with just your focus and attention, your loving awareness, your acceptance of what is. And you can just feel the release from your body, your heart, your mind, your soul, as you give it back to your creator, who was intended to handle it in the first place, right? Let's not forget, we are deeply loved and extremely supported and cared for by our angels, by our guides. Do not forget to communicate with them, right? These right brain thoughts, it can be source, it can be angels, it can be guides, it can be whoever it is of your own understanding. Again, it's not egoic. It's not my will. In fact, I would say I feel more in alignment when I surrender my will and say thy will be done, right? Because I know at the end of the day, it's safe to trust the guidance of the desires of my heart, which means that is what I'm being led to. So I can put down the ego that says, I want to call this in, I want to manifest this, I want to create that in my life. Ooh, that's exhausting. It is draining. We want to let that go and step into those right brain, higher self, intuition, and guidance from source, guides, angels, and your support team, however you want to call them. That feels really good and that feels complete. I love you, my friends. Make sure you share this if you know somebody who could benefit from it. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one. Namaste. I'm sending you my love.